Welcome to Magic Valley Pagans Ask the Witches. This is David,
And this is Solaris.
and this week our question is, what is raising energy?
So the question is, what is raising energy, but also what is raising energy doing for us as we're practicing magic? What do you use it for?
Also, how do you raise energy? What
Yeah.
kind of techniques can you use to raise this energy that we don't know what it is?
When you are reading books on paganism, witchcraft, Wicca, you're going to come across raising energy. And a lot of times this might be the first exposure you've had to this term. What does raising energy mean? So right off the bat, for me personally, raising energy is about drawing on the elements that are around me, and I am creating additional energy than what I possess personally. So, for example, if I am operating at top capacity and I'm about to do a spell or a ritual, and I want to uh, maybe charge something, if I want to enchant something, if I want to send healing energy somewhere or a hex even, I am going to want to direct energy into something or to a place. And so if I'm at top capacity, if I'm not drained already, if I'm working at peak efficiency,
like your normal everyday uh, optimum energy level.
right, then I'm still going to want to raise energy because I don't want to deplete myself.
Right.
I don't want to drain myself when I do magic. That's something that you don't want to do. And so I'm going to raise energy in order to have a surplus that I can put into an object or that I can send somewhere or direct where I want it to go.
That's a good way of looking at it. The way I experience it is very much like when I did theater. At the end of a performance, everybody in the audience starts clapping and cheering, and sometimes they stand up and give you a standing ovation. But all that focused attention, all that focused energy comes into you, and it gives you kind of a high. It elevates your mood, makes you more perceptive. It gives you kind of an internal buzz. So the sensation of raising energy to me is very much like that. I don't know if you have any experience with stagecraft, but if you've ever given a speech and had people like it and that rush you get afterwards, maybe the feeling of an adrenaline rush after you've had a near miss in a car, things like that, that's kind of the sensation that I get when my energy is raised. I have also experienced drawing in different types of energy. Sometimes I will bypass myself completely and just use the earth energy or the fire energy. I'll pull it through and send it right into.
Mm-hmm.
When I raise that kind of energy, it's not necessarily being held inside my body. I sometimes just become a conduit, but it's around, the energy's around me, or it's in proximity, or it's ready at hand to be used.
There's also when you are depleted, when you are, like we talked in another episode about, when you're feeling drained, for example, from being around people,
Mm.
you're peopled out. So I talked about being at peak performance, peak efficiency. I'm still going to raise energy. I'm not going to use my own stores solely.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm not operating at peak efficiency, if I'm tired, if I've been ill, if I'm drained from a long day at work, for example, or from running children around, I need to raise energy to bring myself back up to where I feel whole. And so I completely agree with you about that, the energy that you feel, that buzz, that, the way that you described it, that's very right on. And I think that's a good way um, to identify with it, because I think if you've ever done any type of performance, whether you've done like karaoke in a bar while you're
Yeah.
drunk, or
Or
you
sober.
or sober. I don't know who does the karaoke while they're sober. But if you've done stagecraft, if you've performed, if you've been in a skit for school, you get that rush from the applause from the audience, from all of that adoration or that attention or that approval or whatever it is that you're getting. That's you're raising energy. The group of people that you just performed for raised energy.
I think it's a really good way of measuring whether the activities that you're doing are actually raising energy. Because if you can feel it and you understand what that feels like, and then you go to a new energy raising exercise, you say, is this working? Is this doing what it's supposed to do? Then you can calibrate. You can say, well, this feels a lot like that adrenaline rush, or it feels a lot like that attention I got from performing in this skit. And you can say, yes, so this does seem like it's working to raise energy.
I also like that you pointed out this isn't just about using energy in a way that is like a product. I'm not using it like I'm spending it necessarily all the time. That's not always what raising energy is about. I described raising energy to you to put toward a use, like spending it, to put into an object or send it out. But I like that you pointed out that it could just be to alter your perception of things, to put you in an altered state. That buzz, that high that you can achieve. So if you're meditating, for example, or if you're trying to get into an altered state, raising energy is a really good way of doing that. And so I'd like to talk about ways that you can raise energy. And I think that's something that people like to ask about because, I think you can lock yourself into one way of raising energy and then forget about all the other ways that you're already doing that are raising energy as well.
Other ways that are effective or other ways. Yeah, you can pigeonhole and you can get used to this doing it the same way and it becomes rote. One of the ways, well, the classics, I mean, we can go through some of those. Chanting and singing is a way of raising energy. Dancing is a way of raising energy.
Drumming is a way of raising energy. Using a musical instrument, rattles, shaker types of things, bells raise energy. I think any type of movement is going to raise energy, whether it's in form of dance or, I mean, you could do interpretive dance. You can do full on. I mean, even if you're out with friends, like we talked about, going to a bar doing karaoke, that's raising energy. But when you're on the dance floor, you're raising energy. I mean,
absolutely.
We all know that crazy high you get when you go and you're in a group of people like that, and the music is loud. So you've got all these elements. You've got people singing, you've got people dancing, you've got music playing. Right. These are all ways the energy is being raised, and so no wonder people love doing that.
Oh yeah. To that I would add, martial arts can raise energy, and there are some martial arts like Qigong where it's exclusively about raising energy. There are breathing techniques that can be used to raise and direct energy. Meditation, there are meditative practices to raise energy.
So I think that, if you really want to get into all the different ways that you can raise energy, you have a lot of options, and not all of them. I mean, some people use, whips and chains, and some people like to sing and dance, and it's really about your preference and what works for you. Some people, might not enjoy drumming, but they really enjoy maybe breathing exercises instead.
Very much so, and it's if you've never raised energy before, and I'm guessing you may not have if you're asking this question, it's easy to start with the basics. Get a drum, get a song you like to dance to, sing along to something, find a mantra or a chant that you can repeat over and over and over again, and do it. Try it out. See what happens. See how you feel. And the key, I think, is comparing how you feel after doing the exercise to the way you felt before doing the exercise.
Keep a journal and write down, this, maybe make yourself a scale. This is where you are on the scale after you drum. And then this is where you are on the scale after you sing or after you chant or after you shake or rattle. And start to get in tune with yourself about what works for you, and at the end of the day, what do you enjoy doing out of all of those things? If you enjoy it, you're probably going to raise a lot more energy when you do it.
Boy, that's the truth. Yeah, there are some methods that you're going to resonate with and they're really going to amp you up, and there are others where you'll just be kind of like, meh, that didn't really do it for me.
Right.
And that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Nothing at all wrong with that.
Not at all. So, does that answer the question we talked about?
Well, I think we wanted to touch on what do you do with it. So we've raised all this energy and we've talked about techniques, but we touched on you can go into an altered mental state with all that excess energy, and you can use it to power a spell or a devotional, or you can use it to charge an object. What are some of the other things that you can think of that?
I would say you can use it for healing. I mean, if you want to raise energy, that's a really good opportunity to use it for self-healing, for sending healing, if you are working with someone who needs healing. I think that is one of those things that, because healing really takes energy. It really, really takes it, especially if you're doing it for yourself, but even if you're sending it to someone else. If you're working on yourself, you're going to walk away very drained after trying to work on self-healing. And you've got to be able to raise energy in order to put that toward, that energy debt.
Yeah.
That's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that. I feel like, there are some situations where if you're in a group of people, for example, and you're all raising energy, there's some phenomena that takes place. I feel like that's very different than when you're working alone and you're raising energy.
I agree with you. Yeah.
In a group situation, I feel like you all come away with more energy personally than you started off with, plus you've raised an excess of energy that you can direct somewhere.
Yeah, it's like a synergy. The sum is more than the individual parts.
Absolutely. I think it's a little different when you're working on your own. I think that there are ways that you can raise energy where you have that experience, but I think you have to work harder at it. There's something really, for lack of a better word, magical about working in a group where you're all raising energy. You just all walk away feeling way higher than you did before. Right. Even if you send that energy into something, you still have excess than where you started from, which is, I think, a really cool thing.
Yeah. So we call this energy as pagans, and the truth is that energy is a nice metaphor for it. We don't really know how to quantify it, what it is, but it behaves sort of like a substance, or sort of like a fluid, or electricity, if you will, and it can be directed, and you direct it by visualization, by tactile, the sense of feeling it move around, of feeling that motion of that substance going into things. One thing that I would advise against doing is just simply holding on to it. Something about energy goes sour and turns bad when it's not flowing and moving. You try to keep it like it's a battery in yourself, and later on that day you'll start to get jittery, and you'll start to feel wonky, and you might get a headache and all kinds of weird stuff.
That is so true. If you've ever done a circle, if you've ever done a ritual or spell work or anything like that, and you've raised energy and you forgot to ground later,
right?
You feel it, and you start to notice that your legs are bouncing and you're kind of jumping up and down a little. You're like someone with ADD, or ADHD, and you just can't keep still. You have all this excess. Eventually, that can wear on you, actually.
Oh yeah.
And so that's a really good point, because energy wants to move. It wants to be somewhere else. It has to keep going. And so I think people experience it differently. For me, if I hold on to energy for too long, I feel it in my forearms. Like it hurts. There have been times when I have deliberately raised energy and held on to it for later for a particular purpose. Maybe I raised it earlier in the day to correspond with a particular planetary alignment, who knows what I was doing, but for whatever your reasons are, you might raise it earlier and you might need to hold on to it for a little while. Maybe you need it to get through something, and you've got to hold on to it, but you've still got to release it at some point.
Yeah.
It can't act as a battery for long. You've got to let go of it. And so that's where grounding comes in, and you need to have good grounding techniques. And it's not hard to ground.
Right. Yeah, it's not a substitute for sleep. It's not a substitute for food. The energy, it can get you by a little bit, but if you try to make it like a battery, like you said, Solaris, it'll sour. It'll go wonky.
Yeah.
And grounding, you can put your palms to the earth very simply. There are other techniques you can use to ground that energy out after you've raised it. But if you're not going to use it and don't have a purpose for it, then it is a good idea to ground it out.
Yeah. It'll be there later when you want it again. Trust me.
There's more out there.
There's plenty out there. You don't need to, kidnap it and hold it ransom or anything like that. It's okay to let go of it. It's always available to you when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Another way that you can use the energy that you raise, in different traditions, maybe you create a circle when you do your rituals, and raising energy is one way that you can use to manifest your circle, to create an energetic barrier if you are feeling like you want to be isolated from things like spiritual contact, or you want to create a sacred space. That's another way that you can use your raised energy.
Absolutely, yeah.
But good point. It's not a substitute for food. It's not a substitute for sleep. Don't use it like that.
Right. The wise words of experience talking.
So that's about energy. If you have more questions about raising energy, using energy, how to do those things, feel free to email us at magicvalleypagans@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at Magic Valley Pagans. This is Solaris Moon.
And this is David. And as usual, we thank you for such excellent questions.